Tates. The pair were arrested over the weekend in Miami as part of criminal investigations that have now crisscrossed the globe. Prosecutors in the UK are asking for the Tate stopover in the US to be a quick one as they call for extradition so the brothers can now face dozens of charges. We have details of what happened in a federal courtroom today. Plus, I'm going to be speaking with a celebrity criminal defense attorney, and I am bringing on a member of the US Marshals Service who can give us an inside peek as to what the arrest of Andrew and Tristan Tate look like. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
Remember Sean Combs? Remember how that case ended? Convicted on some counts, cleared on the ones that made headlines. High-profile arrests don't always end where they start. Keep that in mind. Because what happened in Miami this weekend is the biggest legal escalation Andrew and Tristan Tate have faced yet. And there's a detail in the lawyer statements that could complicate how this actually plays out. The numbers first.
According to local reporting. But at the same time that they were facing accusations in Bucharest, multiple women in the UK also brought claims against the Tates. And now these men are facing dozens of charges there. So when they landed in Miami on Saturday, this time they were taken into custody on a sealed warrant as part of an extradition request. According to the Crown Prosecution Service in the UK, Andrew and Tristan are being charged in connection with 4 more alleged victims and incidents that reportedly occurred between 2010 and 2017. So on top of this laundry list of charges that they were already facing, according to reporting from The Guardian, they now face dozens more. The CPS has charged Andrew with 7 more counts of rape, 3 counts of arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, 3 counts of assault with actual bodily harm, and 19 additional charges for offenses relating to indecent images of a child and extreme pornography. So in all, per the BBC, Andrew now faces a total of 42 charges in the UK. Tristan faces 17. The head of the CPS Special Crimes Division, this is Malcolm McAfee, said these charging decisions followed receipt of a further file of evidence from Bedfordshire Police and bring the total number of alleged victims in this case to.
Andrew Tate now faces 42 charges in the UK. Tristan faces 17, 59 combined. Rape, human trafficking, assault, and offenses tied to indecent images and extreme pornography. The Crown Prosecution Service says the new charges connect to 4 additional alleged victims, incidents reportedly from 2010 to 2017, bringing the total to 7. None of this has been tested in court. Both brothers deny everything. And their attorney's response has been some of the most combative language in this case so far. Quick background.
Now, it has been a little bit since we talked about Andrew and Tristan Tate, the self-described misogynistic social media influencers who currently face criminal charges in more than one country. So right now, as I'm recording this, the brothers are in federal custody in Miami, Florida. They're going to await a judge's decision on whether they're going to be shipped back to the UK to face sex crimes charges. So you have 39-year-old Andrew and 38-year-old Tristan Tate. They're dual citizens in the US and the UK. But for the past couple of years, the two have been in and out of Romanian jail cells. The two had moved to Romania after criticizing the lack of freedoms in other countries online. In late 2022, Andrew and Tristan were arrested along with 2 women. They were accused of luring women into sexual exploitation and things like sex work websites with promises of romantic relationships, or that the Tate brothers would help them advance their influencer careers. Andrew Tate has stated repeatedly that there's 0 evidence against him, that there's some sort of underlying conspiracy at work. They spent time locked up in jail as well as on house arrest before a court lifted travel restrictions, gave them permission last year to leave the country, fly to Florida on a private jet before returning to Romania. And the case in Romania is still ongoing, but has hit a few procedural hurdles.
Andrew is 39. Tristan is 38, both dual US-UK citizens. For roughly 3 years, they moved in and out of the Romanian legal system. Arrested in late 2022 alongside 2 women on allegations of luring women into sexual exploitation. Andrew has consistently said There's zero evidence against him. They spent time jailed and under house arrest before a Romanian court lifted their travel restrictions, which is how they ended up flying to Florida last year. The Romania case is still open, tangled in procedural delays. Meanwhile, separate claims from multiple women were building in the UK the whole time. Here's the detail that matters.
7. Now, attorneys for the Tates have adamantly denied any wrongdoing. Lawyer Joseph McBride did not mince words in a lengthy statement saying, in part, the world knows Andrew and Tristan Tate are innocent. Their enemies know it best of all. That is exactly why they have been attacked. He continued, understand what Britain just did. There is a long-standing agreement between the UK and Romanian governments that the UK would not seek extradition while the Romanian proceedings are pending. Those proceedings are ongoing right now. That agreement exists because no nation gets to trample the judicial sovereignty of another for political convenience. The UK shredded its own word the moment it became useful to shred it. That is who they are. This extradition demand has one purpose: to kidnap Andrew and Tristan through paperwork before an American jury exposes the truth to the entire world. We are confident that once a competent judge sees the facts and once the Department of Justice confronts this egregious abuse of its own authority, Andrew and Tristan Tate will walk free. America does not do Britain's political dirty work, not here, never. McBride claimed in his statement that the arrests were green-lighted by a low-level functionary at the DOJ, but the department reportedly told the Associated Press that the arrests were approved by leadership of its criminal division. Matt Jury, who we've had on this program before, a lawyer representing four.
According to the defense, there was a long-standing understanding between UK and Romanian authorities that the UK would hold off on extradition while the Romanian case was active. If that's true, this weekend's warrant wasn't just an arrest. It was, in the defense's framing, jumping the line.
Overall perception is, essentially, so they were in Florida, they get arrested on this extradition, they still have that pending case in Romania, and that's what's going to be so interesting about this extradition is that there was an alleged agreement with the UK for priority. And we often do this with different states that might have different cases on individuals. So that's kind of where they are right now. They have these pending cases in Romania. They have pending cases in England. This extradition is for the case in England that was going to be essentially stayed until the Romanian cases were resolved.
That argument is what next Monday's hearing is actually about. How Saturday happened the brothers were in Miami for a fighting event, taken into custody on a sealed warrant tied to a formal UK extradition request.
Why at that time, right as they were going to this fighting event, is there strategy there? Is there a specific reason why it happened at that moment?
The reason, as far as what I can share, is that that moment was information was publicly available that the Tate brothers were going to attend that event. And so the decision was made to do it at that time.
A US Marshals Service source confirmed the process. The request went through the DOJ, was approved, referred to the Southern District of Florida, and a federal judge issued the warrant before marshals executed it. The public arrest footage shows essentially the whole thing. The part you don't see is the weeks of legal process before it.
Happening that wasn't captured by the body cam in terms of how they were arrested, how they were processed, what questions they were asked, how they were checked. What's happening that we don't see?
So the big part that you don't see is that legal process that I explained before, the process of actually getting to the point of a warrant being issued. But in this case, the arrest was very quick. It was there really were no issues there, and so there really isn't a lot that's happening there that you don't see.
The marshals described the arrest itself as quick and without incident. No weapons, no resistance. The reaction split hard.
This extradition demand has one purpose: to kidnap Andrew and Tristan through paperwork before an American jury exposes the truth to the entire world. We are confident that once a competent judge sees the facts and once the Department of Justice confronts this egregious abuse of its own authority, Andrew and Tristan Tate will walk free. America does not do Britain's political dirty work, not here, never. McBride claimed in his statement that the arrests were green-lighted by a low-level functionary at the DOJ.
Attorney Joseph McBride called the extradition a political operation, invoked the alleged UK-Romania agreement directly, and said the brothers would walk free once a judge saw what he called an abuse of authority. He claimed the arrest was greenlit by a low-level DOJ official. The DOJ told the AP it was approved by leadership in its criminal division. On the other side, attorney Matt Jury, representing 4 alleged UK victims, said this is years of public campaigning finally producing action, and called the allegations among the most serious a person can face. The process from here, per the BBC, the CPS request gets certified by a UK judge, routed through the Home Office to the US State Department, considered by a US court, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio reportedly has final say.
Requests take, right? The Crown Prosecution Office puts together a request, it gets certified by a judge, the final request is sent over to the Home Office, which then forwards it on to the US State Department. It's then considered by a court here in the US, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio apparently would have the final say so on extradition. And there have been rumors in the past that the Tates, who have both shown support for President Donald Trump, could see his intervention in their legal cases, but the president has previously said he doesn't know anything about the Tates cases. This is according to reporting by Time magazine. However, I will tell you, the outlet reports that Donald Trump Jr. was previously quoted saying the brothers' detention in Romania was, quote, absolute insanity. Now, a barrister, lawyer, specializing in extradition law, Ben Keith, told the Times in the UK that if the Tates decide to fight the extradition application, the case could be tied up in the British legal system for months. All right, I know this is a little...
Given both brothers' public support for President Trump, some see room for political weight here, though Trump has said he doesn't know the specifics. An extradition barrister told the Times that if the Tates fight it, as their lawyer says they will, the case could stay tied up for months. Custody matters too.
Alleged long-standing agreement with UK that they would not seek extradition while Romania was pending. And I think someone at maybe DOJ or someone else decided to submit this warrant to the magistrate judge. The magistrate judge signed off on it. That's how a warrant gets issued. That's how extradition starts. Now, that's phase 1. Phase 2 of why they would fight extradition. Well, number 1 is because of that agreement. And then number 2 is because they would be remaining in custody, most likely on the transfer to England. And they've already experienced this in Romania, right? They were in custody for like 8 months or a year with charges not filed. Then they were filed, and some were dropped, some were pending. They seized all their items. I mean, the Romanian thing was a little bit crazy in terms of how it took place and how they weren't allowed to go anywhere. So they obviously are.
Under federal extradition law, bond isn't the norm. Defense attorney Bradford Cohen laid out why the Tates might argue otherwise.
Generally, you're not entitled to bond in terms of the extradition, and how that works is the 3184, 18 USC 3184 kind of controls it, right? And we look at the bond determination in, are they a flight risk? Are they a harm to society? They're not entitled to a bond. And most likely in cases like this, individuals are not awarded a bond. Now, why is their case different? A couple things. Number 1 is they've been out. Nothing has happened. Society has been safe. Number 2 is they're well-known personalities. If they wanted to run, they could have run. They could have gone to Vietnam. They could have gone to different countries that have zero extradition with anyone, Romania, America, England. They could have gone to those countries. They did not. So the flight risk argument, I think, is a little weak. And then that third thing, which is really the most important to me, is that UK had an agreement that there was a priority for Romania. And the argument essentially would be is that this was kind of a rogue actor that submitted a warrant and it was signed by a magistrate, and that magistrate, had no idea about any kind of agreement with the UK about the Romanian incident. So they have a multitude of things to address. What it's going to come down to is essentially the extradition hearing, and then also if the UK is.
They've been free without incident. They had chances to flee to non-extradition countries and didn't. And, most importantly in his view, that alleged priority agreement, if real, suggests this warrant came from what he called a rogue submission a magistrate, signed without knowing the fuller picture. Cohen also flagged a separate risky years of the brothers' own public statements potentially being used as character evidence, the same way prosecutors have stretched rap lyrics in other cases.
When I represent individuals, high-profile individuals, which I've had many, it worries me about, what they've said. And here's what worries me more sometimes is how the prosecutors use it, how they twist it to use it. That happens a lot too. Look at the rap lyrics that are being used these days. And I've had cases where state attorneys or federal U.S. attorneys have manipulated the words to kind of fit their narrative or, change them completely. So it's the same thing with rap lyrics. What does that worry me, that the guy's talking about, hey, I carry a 45 and I slide the block? Of course it worries me, because it's something that I know I have to address. So it's going to come down to is what they would use and how they would use it. And I think that should be really looked at least in the United States. I've always been a proponent for really narrowing the scope of rap lyrics, narrowing the scope of what an individual says, because we are a country and we are a country of freedom of speech, narrowing it so that it is tailored to the actual case. An individual saying, hey, I don't like women that are promiscuous, and then, they're in a sexual case, and all of a sudden the prosecutor wants to bring that statement in for just kind of, they'll say it's for something else, but we know it's for character evidence. It really shouldn't be allowed. So yes, does it worry me? Yes. Does it concern me? Yes. It just depends on what the statement is and how they would bring it in.
There's a third front too. CNN reports Florida is separately investigating the brothers, adding another jurisdiction to a case that already spans two. Monday's actual hearing was brief.
Okay, so like I said, there was a hearing today, very, very brief. It was in front of US Magistrate Judge Lauren Lewis, basically set another hearing for next Monday. Their attorney said they're going to fight extradition. The brothers came into court today. They were wearing tan jail uniforms, handcuffs. This is all per reporting from the Associated Press. And look, this is the start of what could be a very interesting and possibly complicated extradition fight. The judge will have to determine whether or not they meet the conditions of extradition, whether or not, as we talked about, the whole Romanian.
The brothers appeared before U.S. Magistrate Judge Lauren Lewis in jail uniforms and handcuffs, per the AP. Their attorney confirmed they'll fight extradition. A follow-up hearing is set for next Monday. Nothing about guilt or the underlying charges was decided. So the real legal question isn't whether the allegations are true. It's whether the extradition request meets the treaty's formal conditions, and whether an alleged Romania-UK agreement changes that. If the defense proves it, this becomes a fight about whether one country can route around a promise to another through a third country's courts. If not, the case moves toward a standard extradition hearing. No bond, months of process. Underneath the jurisdictional fight, 7 alleged victims. Some claims dating back 15 years, finally reaching a courtroom after moving through 3 legal systems. We'll know more after next Monday. Subscribe for the update the moment that hearing happens. And tell us in the comments which argument you think actually holds up: the priority agreement defense or the UK's extradition case